So welcome everybody. We'll just wait 1 or 2 more minutes for people to join. But I'll just my name's Simone Taff. We then have Paul, who's helping us coordinate. We then have Jenny Pay, and we are the facilitators of this workshop. We have Jeff on the screen. Then we have Nicholas Gruen, our guest today. So welcome, Nicholas.
Hi there.
And so this is a Smart Cities event, a workshop, and we're thrilled that you could all come. We've got quite a few people at the moment, 23, which is fabulous. The idea of this is to get us all together to meet each other and on a topic. And the topic today, we just think you're going to really enjoy it, which is citizen juries. And Nicholas Gruen has given many talks and attended different workshops for Swinburne. So yeah, look, maybe I should pass over to you. Do you want to do the welcome for country, Jenny?
No, I accidentally hit the wrong button.
Okay, no worries. So I'll just continue the introduction to the day. So we have Nicholas Gruen, who is our guest, and he's the CEO of his own company, Lateral Economics. And he's described on Wikipedia as one of our foremost thinkers in Australia. So you're almost a national treasure, Nicholas, and it's always
a worry. It's a big worry, I think. You know.
It's always exciting to talk to you and hear your views on things. It's truly lateral thinking, it really is. And Jenny and I are from the design school, and we love lateral thinking, so we love your name. So we're really interested to hear you talk us through this idea. And then because we only have an hour, we don't have time to really get into the nuts and bolts, which we'd love to, but Zoom presentations are best in an hour. So we're going to do a designerly technique, which is experiencing by doing. So we're going to put you in breakout rooms and you're going to have a go at experiencing some of the phenomena and peculiarities of citizen juries, and then we'll call you back in to share your experiences. So do you want to do the welcome to country now slide?
Well, now I'm trying to make it move forward. It won't do it.
Okay.
I think, oh, you just click on it. That was
there
my
we go.
problem before I clicked on the screen. Okay, so we would like to acknowledge that we are hosting this webinar from the lands of the Wurundjeri people, which is for the people in Melbourne. We realise also that some of you are actually on other lands, so we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you are all working today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar. We also pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters. So, Paul, do you want to discuss the way you want it to run?
Hi everyone. So just letting you know, you've got a few options with Q&A, and we ask that you follow these options. So if you do have a question, you can feel free to type it into the Q&A box. Please pop it in the Q&A box rather than the chat. Just leave the chat feature for comments. You can also use the raise hand feature, and we'll enable your audio just like a normal seminar where you can just physically ask your question. And just to let you know that the session will be recorded. We will be distributing this to attendees afterwards. If you feel uncomfortable about being featured in the recording, just let me know and we can edit your component out. My email address is just listed there. Back to you, Jenny.
Okay, so now it's time for Nicholas to share his screen.
I shall do that. How's this? Is that shared? Everyone?
Perfect.
Anyone in? No, I'm on the wrong page. All right, so that should be the beginning of my the opening slide. Has everyone got that?
Yes, that's perfect. So it's over to you.
So it's over to me. So I'll talk to you. I want to talk to you for about 20 minutes. It'd be nice if I could leave some time for a bit of questions before we go into groups. We'll see how we go. So I want to firstly present you with a very simple idea to which I have come after a long time of thinking about what's wrong with our democracy. And that is that there are essentially three ways to run a democracy, speaking very generally. The first is direct democracy. That's the triangle at the top, the people. And in a society of 25 million people, or even in a society of 200,000 in ancient Athens, you need some mechanism for creating some representation of the whole people. And what we have done since the French and American revolutions is we have democratized aristocracy. And that's what elections are. If you recall your basic history, Parliament in Great Britain goes back to, well, before Magna Carta, and not many people had the vote to get people into Parliament, even the House of Commons. And then we democratized the franchise. The method that the Athenians used, they almost never used elections. They did use elections for their strategoi or their generals, but almost all this representation of the public was done via allotment, that is, choosing people at random. And of course, you'll recognize that in our legal system, it's still there, and that's juries. That's a fundamental idea that I want you to be thinking about, which is these two different ways of representing the people in a democracy, and they embody completely different logics. I don't want to tell you that juries are better than parliaments, or that a citizens' assembly, which might be the same number of parliamentarians, which, since you asked, is 227, chosen at random from the Australian people as a chamber of parliament. I happen to think that would be a good addition to our democracy, not a replacement for the democracy we have. But my own, for what it's worth, my own, something strange has just happened on a screen. Sorry about that. My own thinking about what's happened with our democracy is that we have taken this one way to represent the people and pursued it to the almost complete exclusion of the others, of the other method, and that has produced deepening toxicity, deepening dysfunction. Everyone feels it. I think a lot of people diagnose the problems wrongly, but almost everyone feels the radical inauthenticity of modern politics. So here are a bunch of dot points about ways in which these systems appeal to different logic or different psychology. So electing representatives is a unitary idea. That is that there is a chain of accountability that goes from us to the decision making in the state, and that chain is, at least in principle, a complete chain. That's quite different to our understanding of the way in which we make juries democratic. We make juries democratic by saying two things. One, these are people just like you or me, and two, we're not going to go with a guilty verdict unless we have an overwhelming majority or a strong majority of those people. And those two rules mean, paradoxically, that we actually have far more trust in juries than we do in our parliament, over whom, oddly enough, we have more control. So the notion of accountability is central to elections and basically doesn't exist in a jury system. The accountability is an artificial account. It's a statistical accountability, if you like, but it's not an accountability relationship. It's representation without accountability. Isn't that an extraordinary and countercultural notion? Elections, electoral politics builds competition and polarization into the logic of representation. there's good things about that. It requires people to be clear about what they support and what they don't support. And there are hugely bad things about that. And one of them is that an awful lot of reasoning is not competitive reasoning. The reasoning that you get about in your groups today will not be motivated by how do I take advantage of this other person. And taken to its extreme, if you've read the piece I wrote called Trust and the Competition Delusion, taken to its extreme, competition is a kind of anti-thinking, and I only need to present you with a normal election, a normal candidates debate to make that point, I think. Parliament is not a deliberative chamber. You can see how good these people are when they occasionally get a conscience vote. They're very lucid, responsible, decent people, a lot of them. And then watch Question Time, which is the meat and potatoes of adversarial politics, of electoral politics in Australia, and it's a farce. One of the great strengths of selection by lot, and one of the reasons the Athenians were so keen on it, is that Athens, ancient Athens, was the only democracy we know of in which the people understood themselves to be preserving their democracy in the teeth of oligarchy, in the teeth of power, to protect the people from those with power and those with influence. It's much easier to corrupt a parliament, elected representatives, than it is to corrupt, or I'll put it a slightly different way, your incentives to corrupt a parliament are profound. If you're a powerful person, your incentive to corrupt juries, well, it's not possible to corrupt juries. You have to take each one as they come, they form, and then they disappear again. So juries are a way of interdicting corruption, but I added there hard and soft corruption, and Parliament is utterly corrupt in the sense that the only people who listen to debates and try to vote on the merits are the people I call the randos in the Senate, the Jackie Lambies, the motorists enthusiast party, the extraordinary odd bunch of people who've turned up there, and they listen to the arguments, not all of them, and not all of them in purely good faith, but that's the only time you actually see a non-corrupt response to debate. And that again is a fairly disastrous state of affairs. So citizen juries, selection by allotment is much more conducive to deliberation. And then a really big thing for me, a little bit of Greek there at the bottom, a term which doesn't even have, it's a political concept in ancient Athens. It doesn't even have it doesn't even exist, the concept. We have no word for this concept. Sometimes this word is translated as freedom of speech. The Athenians had a different word for that, and it was actually a different concept as well. It was much closer to the idea of the duty to speak truth to power than it is to our notion of freedom of speech. But isegoria means equality of speech. And I will suggest to you that our Western world is being torn apart by a lack of this thing which we haven't even named. We haven't even got to the stage of naming it. So the strongest fault line in Western democracy is the fault line between less well-educated people and better educated people. Those with, if you like, those with university degrees and those without university degrees. Those with university degrees constitute less than 50% of the population in almost all developed countries, and they constitute over 95% of people's elected representatives. Is it any wonder that those with less education are wild with rage? Is it any wonder that they are wild with rage when they are given no voice, but when they use their own voices, they're attacked by speech police as being racist and sexist and transphobic and all kinds of things? So that's my quick, I've laboured a little longer than I wanted to, that's my quick picture of what's wrong, and this, I think, incredibly valuable way to balance some of the terrible things that have gone wrong with our democracy. However, I also think that this is infected far more, because organizations run according to a very similar set of principles, which is that there is a pyramid of sovereignty, and they're not democracies, and that's either good or a bad thing. That's not really what I'm trying to point at. What I'm trying to point at is that this unitary logic brings in lots of the inauthenticity, lots of the spin meistering, lots of the soft corruption that we see in Parliament. Lots of the dysfunction of organisations comes from this. And so I see this method of allotment as quite powerful to try and address that. But I don't want to tell you that and the origin of this workshop is Mark Burry's thinking about how do we use iHub as well as we can. I don't know whether anyone wants to interrupt and explain what iHub is, but I'll just go on if you're okay. So most people know what iHub is, and it can be explained if it's not clear later. So I don't want to tell you that you should have citizen juries in iHub necessarily. What I want to say to you is that you should think about this toxic logic, this toxic unitary logic based on a single source of sovereignty as a major issue. And so I want to just take you through, now I don't know why this won't work. I want to take you through three, so now I want to change the frame. I've used elections versus sortition, elections versus selection by lot to sketch out the landscape. And now I want to talk about a repertoire. So if you name for me any part of our corporate or political repertoire, it will almost certainly be in a unitary sovereign frame. So whenever I see something gone hugely, toxically, crazily wrong, I think what would be the repertoire for recovering our sanity via this other repertoire, this other set of ideas? One of the things that's gone bizarrely wrong is ethics committees. I could tell you stories, I won't bother. They're extraordinary. The unethical, firstly, they're incredibly cumbersome and disruptive and obstructive of good work, but they do unbelievably unethical things. I won't, I will. The ethics committee threw someone out of Canberra Hospital halfway through their experimental cancer treatment, which had been agreed to by Canberra Hospital, and they threw them out of the hospital for ethical reasons. The ethics committee decided that this halfway through the course that it wasn't ethical, and they therefore thought the ethical thing was to throw the patient out of the hospital without anywhere to go. And that isn't I haven't made that story up. It was on 60 Minutes. A friend of mine, Paul Freitas, did an experiment at University of Queensland, which showed that when people got onto a bus and asked the driver for the favour of being taken to the next stop without paying because they didn't have their money, that 70% of the time the driver said yes, but about slightly less than 50% if you weren't white. That was deemed as unethical. So how would you, now the reason ethics committees are so dysfunctional is that they're soft corrupt. People's careers depend on them. They know what the game is, and the game is to stay out of the papers, basically. And the whole thing doesn't work. I don't want to derail. I can discuss that with you offline if you like. But an alternative, if you need an ethics committee, and I happen to think you ought to need ethics committees pretty rarely, but if you need an ethics committee, do it like we do it in law cases. A jury is an ethics committee. Grab some people, say, we're planning to do this, what do you think? And they're almost certain to say, sure. Another example is the selection of merit. In our organizations, selection of merit is absolutely tied like a heroin to the tram tracks in an old silent movie to self-assertion. We don't select people for merit if they don't put up their hand and say, me, sir, me. In the citizen jury in Adelaide on nuclear waste, there were 340 people, so they needed spokespeople. So they came up with a system for selecting on merit that didn't revolve around competition or self-assertion. And it basically, they said, who wants to be a spokesperson? About 15 people stood up. They said, that's great. Now point to the third person on your right. You people can sit down. The third person on the right, the 15 of those went into a room, spent an hour thinking of the criteria according to which spokespeople should be chosen, and then the next hour working out who they'd met in the previous 3 days who met those criteria. They then asked those people who'd been identified if they were happy to be spokespeople, and I think, anyway, most of them said yes, I think. And that was a tremendously successful way, owned very much by the group, a tremendously successful way of choosing spokespeople. As a nice little add-on, it delivered gender equity, but that wasn't one of the criteria, which of course is the very best way to deliver gender equity. Can you imagine how different our world would be, how differently people would think about their work every day if they thought, if I do something not for myself but for the group, one day somebody might mention me in a meeting like that. That's a very different logic. I'm not telling you we should replace the logic we have with that. What I am saying is that we need to be far more imaginative in asking the question, what would come out of that world that we don't have in the world that we have? So that's the way I see the kinds of questions you might have on your mind today. You have to build something which will just be makeshift, won't it? We're just human beings. Some of us are hippopotamuses, and we just have to do the best we can. So that's what I wanted to say to you. And here's a close personal friend of mine, Adam Smith, the founder of Modern Economics, and a nice way to think about another lens on our deliberations today. So Simone, you need.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Nicholas. I picked up on some of your words, which I just like to say. We're looking at elections versus sortition. We're thinking about the toxic ways that we run our society. The less educated, the 50%, are wild with rage because they're not represented, their ideas. 95% of people who are elected to make decisions are the educated, and here we are at a university. It is a time of change and disruption, and what are new ways of being and living. Ethics committees, what should we do about them? Competition, corruption was a big word you used. It's corruption. And how do we deliberate?
Soft corruption.
Soft corruption and deliberation. How do we deliberate? So I think they're very, very powerful words that we probably don't think about in our daily lives at the university often. So thank you so much for introducing us to these concepts. And of course, there's a lot more depth to it. It was just touching the surface, but we would like to have a little play with this and then pick you up with some. Or does anybody have any questions before we start? Otherwise, Jenny, you're going to put the questions in the chat and you put the next slide up.
Link in the chat, and I do think that a discussion at the end is going to be
better. Yes, that's what we've planned. So let's do that. So
please hold them until after the activities, because I think this will add to the depth of your question. Or
yes. So the next slide with our tasks. So what we're going to do is break you into groups, and we have the breakout rooms ready. We've got about 5 groups, and you're going to be color coded into a colored group. And the first activity, it's a little bit small on the screen. I don't know if you can zoom in, Jenny. We're calling it the biases we bring to decision making. Nicholas talks a lot about the biases. So you're going to be thrown into a random group. And we'd like you to choose one of these cards. We'll put this link in your group so that you can click on it when you're in the group.
In the main chat.
Yeah. So we want you to choose one of these and then brainstorm the types of biases that this person might bring to the decision-making process, either intentionally or unintentionally. So that I'll just explain the 2 activities. So you'll do that for a little bit more than 5 minutes in your group. Second activity is called Making It Fair, the dynamics of the citizen jury. And then you'll discuss the following issues with respect to forming a citizen jury. How should we form a citizen jury? Who should be on a citizen jury? Should it be on the side of electing a leader, self-nominated, voting, chosen representative, individual autonomy? Or should we find a spokesperson by peer nomination, by consensus, by randomly allocation, or community voice?
Or anywhere in between.
Yeah, or anywhere. They're just really words to trigger your discussion on either sides of those camps. And then that'll just be 5 minutes. And the third activity, so if you can quickly kind of brainstorm and move to the next one, which is making it fair, the source of the citizen jury. So who should it be? The demographics, the diversity, how many should there be in a citizen jury? So you might choose a quick topic to work on, or just work through these 3 activities. We're going to put these little prompts in your breakout room to remind you, and we'll put a little prompt at the top of your room to bring you back, and we want you back at about 3:45. So you've got 15 minutes, 5 minutes on each. So Paul, over to you for the breakout rooms.
Okay, I'm going to assign you all now.
Somehow I got put in a room.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Where's Damon? Oh, he's gone. Okay. Now, breakout rooms. Now I can see them. Oh, I can only join them because I've been assigned to it. Okay.
I'm not sure what I can.
In charge, I could message the breakout rooms. If I write a message in this main chat, I don't think it goes to the breakout rooms.
Maybe shoot it to me and I can try and...
Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Or I can switch over and give you host controls. May work.
No, don't. I don't know. Just copy what I type and put it.
Yeah, okay.
It comes out as a thing comes up the top there saying message to all rooms or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, so just send that to them now?
Yep. I'm just going to time them and prompt them when to move activity.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward sometimes, the breakout rooms. I found, send this.
Yep. Oh, we better send them the link as well again. If you can just copy, oh, I'll copy it again.
Okay, done.
Thank you. So we lost a few people after Nicholas finished talking.
Oh, no. Yeah, I noticed I had to do some
From
rejigging.
about 30 to about 25, boom.
Yeah, I know. It was interesting. Okay. So I think there was, yeah, maybe what they knew they had an activity or something.
But it's still 30 minutes. And yes, like if you think the activity, like I did the same, I was at a conference thing and they went, and now we're going to go into breakout rooms and talk. And I thought, oh, I don't want to talk.
Yeah, I know. It's Thursday afternoon, right before a public holiday.
So yeah, I understand. Yeah, I have to pick up the kids too. I don't have anyone, but I've got to go pick them up.
I've accidentally allocated Alex to a room on his own. I'm sure he's fine. I'm just going to go quickly tell him he can come out of that room. Because we had orange, but because the numbers shrank, it was reduced to 4. So I'll disappear for a few secs.
Let's make a record of this question. Oh no, she's already had it answered.
As I said, that suited Alex being in a room on his own.
Is that where he was?
Yeah, because he was allocated. I don't think he'd get out. So anyway, now do you want me to send this?
Please. So Alex is just sitting there on his own.
But I'm sure it just suits him.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Okay, I've broadcast that to everyone. So what time are we getting them all out of the meeting?
We at 1:45 or
Okay.
1:15. I don't know what hour you're on. What happens if I do this? Yeah, just send that bit.
Do you want me to send that bit?
Yeah, electing a leader or finding a spokesperson. Just as a prompt.
Yeah.
Because we're moving in pretty fast through this.
Interesting activity.
Well, it's a little bit of a tricky one. So Simone and I talked about this a lot, and then we thought, like, Nicholas wanted to guide them through and all this, and he probably is in the group he's in. But we said, let's make them sit in a group, and actually we're trying to do a meta thing, like, how did your group behave when you're given these tasks? Because we haven't made a leader, how did you get it working?
Well, Nicholas's group will be interesting because it's Mark in there, Hussein, Sarah. No, I didn't intend that. So
we've got all the dominant personalities trying to take over.
So who will be the dominant one in there?
Yeah, interesting.
So
we wanted people to experience sitting in a group of 5 trying to work out who's going to make stuff happen. And because we put this time thing on it, that it's going quickly, they can't sort of fluff around with it.
A bit like 12 Angry Men.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Hey, so you're over in Adelaide, are you?
Yes. There's something other people. And the reason I got confused, like, last time I looked up what people they were, and then I realised I hadn't looked up what people they were, so because you still had the Ballarat people or wherever you are.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm in Bendigo, but everybody says Ballarat or Bendigo. Yeah, both gold mine towns. Yeah, so Jar Jar Waring. I thought, because I'm doing webinars all the time, so I thought I need to.
No, that was fine. So I went in there and I typed the Wurundjeri people, and I looked up how to spell it properly.
Well, most people would think you're in Melbourne anyway. I didn't.
I know, but then I got to the word, and I suddenly couldn't pronounce it because my brain was going, oh, wait a minute, what's the name of the people from here?
That's your mission. You need to find out this afternoon.
I know who it is because I did it for the Marcus Foth one, which is why I was so annoyed because I'd already looked it up. It was something like, now I can't remember.
So are you in Adelaide proper?
In the edge of the city, in the metropolitan, yeah. Not in the city. I mean, in the suburbs. Oh, right. I'm not yet. Oh, I haven't sent it to you anyway.
The Kaurna are the original people of Adelaide. Kaurna, is that how you pronounce it? Kaurna.
Kaurna. Is it Kuna? I think it's pronounced Kuna.
It's interesting. There's so many tribes.
Last time I looked up the pronunciation and everything, and
mine's kind of, I don't know. Mine, before I came up here, I didn't realize the tribe. So it's good to know. I didn't. And I went to one of those cultural awareness sessions, and it was all about Indigenous culture. And they were talking about sites of massacres. And there's a massacre site probably about maybe 10, 15 Ks from here. So it's kind of something that's a bit sobering when you sort of hear the history. So, yeah.
So why are you in Bendigo?
Well, I come from Bendigo originally, and I saw the writing on the wall in March, and I just thought, my brother lives up here. He owns the family home now. So I thought I'd rather come up here than, live in an apartment on my own. I think I'd go a bit mental, and I'm glad I did, actually. So, yeah.
Okay.
Throw this one in.
Yep.
And when did you make the move?
About the same time. So I was teaching on March the 12th, I think it was. Was it that? That was the last teaching Friday?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
It's quite early on.
And we had a class of overseas students, and a girl was from Spain, and she was talking about how in Spain they had to take all their clothes off as they entered the house, because their clothes weren't even allowed in the house, and had to put their shoes in disinfectant. And,
God.
And I'm thinking, okay, if that's really what it's like over there. And then the next thing we're told, oh, it's we're all working from home. So I set up a computer in my little flat, and then my sister rings and says, they're closing the border. What if I need you? You know, because she's always having traumas. And so I just went, well, I'm sitting here staring at the wall. I'll go home because I live here and I have a house here.
Yeah.
And threw a few things in the car, but thought maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month.
Yeah, maybe longer.
Left food in the fridge. It was amazing.
Oh, that's the same for my place. I haven't seen it. I've had the bathroom renovated by remote control. My younger brother, who lives in Melbourne's, gone over and he painted it earlier on.
Nice.
So I've got a brand new place that he won't even send me photos. He won't show me what it looks like. So yeah, and because the lockdown's been eased, like the 5K rule, he went over the other night to have a look, and he still wouldn't send me photos. So I don't know when I'm going to get back. And a good friend of mine, she went over to Perth. She works at Swinney too. She went over to Perth because her dad was unwell, so she had to quarantine for 2 weeks, like literally stay put inside an Airbnb. And now he's on the mend, so she's thinking about heading back in cup time. But she's got property in Castlemaine, and I was asking if she could move there, but she was saying, I don't think I'll get past the Ring of Steel. So you're kind of stuck in Melbourne if you fly into it. So you're in a nicer spot anyway. Adelaide's beautiful.
Yes, my house is in a good spot. I can see the sea, so I just sit looking at the ocean going, that's pretty cool. It's better than looking at a brick wall, which is what I was doing in Hawthorn. So
yeah, absolutely. I can understand why some people are just going nuts. You know.
So I've actually given up my flat because in July, I hung on to it until July, and then they said, you're not coming back next semester. And I thought, well, that's 6 months worth of rent. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. I was thinking I could have rented my place out.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's any takers, but yes.
No, that'll be interesting. So, yeah. How are we going for time?
I'm going to send the 1 minute at 15. So this is my coming back to the room in 1 minute. You can put that out now, but it'll.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we close. So if I close the room, it'll do a 1 minute
it's 1
time.
minute. I know. We're giving them 1 minute before the 1 minute.
Okay. Cool.
Give them a little bit more time because in my experience, like we closed the room. No, the last time we did one, I was sending out these messages going, come back to the room, come back to the room. No one was coming back to the room. So I did that pull them all back thing, and they came in still trying to talk to their group.
Oh, that's a sign of a good workshop.
Well, I guess, yeah, they hadn't done what they were supposed to be doing. They were still stuck on the first exercise because it was so much fun. It was the first exercise where you go find something to show people, like bring along something you're going to, what was something you would be happy to give up for the environment, for sustainability. So mine, pretty serviettes. Maybe I'll have to give up pretty serviettes.
They're IKEA serviettes, aren't they?
Probably.
Yeah, they look like them.
I just love serviettes, pretty ones.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting, Jenny. So otherwise, have you been going well?
Yeah, it's I've been sort of shut down-ish just because I'm just so tired, and I don't actually have many friends here anymore because I haven't lived in Adelaide since 1985.
That's a bit like me in Bendigo. I don't really, all my friends are in Melbourne.
So I've got 2 old school friends, one from high school, the other from early high school. They're the only 2 I kind of keep up with, and they're kind of busy. So I've joined the club.
So is it kind of normal? Is it kind of normal life there? So restaurants and things are open there?
Yep. You really don't feel it, except a little bit more distancing, and some tables won't. We better bring them back. Hit the button.
Yep. Okay. So I'll close the room now.
Yep.
So they've got the message saying rooms will be close and people will start to pop back.
Yeah. So yeah, spacing, with the weather getting better, we're all doing outdoor, which is nicer anyway.
Totally. I'm just loving the sun at the moment. It's good for the soul.
Yeah, certainly is.
Hey Hussein, how are you?
So you don't mind being shut in over winter because it's winter.
Exactly. Yeah. It's no, it'd be interesting to see what happens when they ease things, and I'm just sick of watching the news at the moment because it's just so much bickering, you know, doing this wrong, doing this right, whatever. It's just, it's awful. It's really toxic at the moment.
Okay.
The news, it's just not positive.
So they're doing whose fault it was, any of that
Oh,
stuff?
yeah, blame game and all of that. It's just, it's the
I was
newspaper.
thinking about that, Paul, yesterday, and I was really comforted by you know, some of the commentary from normal citizens, like I think it was Lynn Fox, who came out, and
Yes,
I think that was real leadership then.
absolutely. I think that was great.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, Simone.
I'm back, and I think wasn't it going to automatically get everybody back here?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're all back.
We're all back.
Yes.
Okay, so wonderful.
We're all back.
So I hope you had a good experience and you chose someone and had a feel for the things that Nicholas is saying. And what we'd like everyone to do now is to put into the chat. We think that'll be quicker than electing somebody to speak. But if everyone from your group can put into the chat the main things that have come up, and we're going to have Nicholas as our guest commentate and provoke and think around the issues that you've come up with. So some of the key issues, could you just type away? And nothing's wrong. It's brainstorming kind of method. So off you go, type away for what came up in your groups.
If you can, type your colour first, like
Yes.
say red, and then put your comments so we get a bit of a trail about what's happening in the different groups.
We want to know, did one person lead the group discussion? So that would be an interesting thing to even talk about. Just reflect on the process. Did one person lead it? So you can talk about that. How did you have any kind of group leader, and how was that chosen? How did you keep your discussion fair?
Type in your colour and say yes or no.
Yeah.
Did you have a leader? We just want to get a poll of yes and no.
What colour were we?
Actually, I don't know what colour we were either.
All right.
We were blue. We were blue.
Oh,
We
okay.
were-
Chris was in red, I know that.
And Simone, you were green.
Green. Okay, so our group is green. So off you go. Did one person lead the group from everybody?
No, not with us.
Okay. Right.
No leader.
Red. That's Chris Fluke's group was red.
Somewhat,
Oh,
because
yeah,
you shared the
okay.
screen. So that's taking a leadership.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
with us too.
Yeah, interesting. And there must be one more. Someone must be yellow.
If you want, I can read out names.
Yeah. Okay. All acting as team.
Makes sense.
Lovely.
Interesting. So how did you keep it fair amongst yourselves from each group?
Our culture kept it fair. With just a few people, and we all didn't behave badly, except possibly me. But that's for others to judge.
Did you?
I think Zoom had the biggest effect because of the way that it limits who can talk at any particular time.
Yeah,
Oh,
for our group, I did the teacher thing and invited everybody, made sure everyone had a fair go.
So everybody had a fair go, but it took someone to facilitate that.
Yeah. Yellow, mainly through mutual respect. And I like this. What do you think, Nicholas, about red? We all listened and we asked each other questions to prompt for more.
Mm. Well, yeah. I mean, that doesn't scale terribly well. I'm just making a statement about how the world is, not how it should be.
Yeah. And so how
did you go with the timing? Like, how did you then make sure that you kept on track? Because it was fairly tight timing to get through all of the tasks that we put. in the time if you didn't have someone timekeeping?
We did different tasks.
Oh, did you?
But then to do that, didn't you have to subdivide? Like there must have been a subdividing person. You do this, you do that.
No, not in. We discussed slightly different things to what you asked us to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the blue group got left astray.
I think we just
took
had
activity
questions
2
about
very
the
seriously.
process.
Say that again.
Because we had Nicholas there, we had questions about the logistics of citizens' juries, I think, which we wanted to ask.
And while you're on the screen, what did you learn? What are your ideas? What thoughts came up for you?
Microphone.
Can't hear.
Microphone, Sarah.
You're on mute.
Oh, okay. I was trying to understand how they come about in the first place and what power they're given, because I'd heard that one about the nuclear waste in South Australia, that recently that has actually been approved. So I suppose I'm all for the idea, but I'm also sort of wondering, who's accountable, who keeps track of whether what it's agreed actually gets put into practice, was what I was trying to ascertain, because it seems like they're brought about in different ways, they're initiated by different groups or different people. So for example, if it's a state government who initiates it and then the government changes, then what happens? Can they override it? I suppose that's what I was trying to sort of get
that's really
an understanding of, really.
And Nicholas, what's your view on that or point?
Well, it's we have a structure of sovereignty, and if people and Parliament has power, and if Parliament wants to delegate power, which it does, for instance, to the Reserve Bank, it can. But typically, but this is an experimental phase. I've argued, when people love having a debate about what powers a citizens' assembly should have, and I've given that up as a bad joke, because we need the citizens' assembly long before we'll be able to get any agreement on what powers it should have, and I don't believe in working that out of a textbook anyway. So I think a citizen assembly could be incredibly powerful, and it might be completely unfunded by government. So before COVID came along, I was trying to organise citizens' assemblies in the two recalcitrant countries under Greenhouse, that is Australia and the United States, to appoint via the mechanism that I talked about, a delegation to Glasgow COP26 for the Conference of the Parties. That is a people's delegation from those two countries, given that the governments of those two countries won't do their job. Now, they would have no constitutional power, but we still are a voting democracy, and I think it would get huge amount of attention and would undercut the well-funded presentation of these issues as somehow a tax on people, when they're mainly a tax on fossil fuel industries.
Yeah.
So
Really.
Nicholas, there's a question here from Julie Gelman. Didn't Melbourne City Council have a citizen jury to determine their budget, and it was regarded as very successful?
Correct. Yeah, that's true. They produced a 10-year budget. Now, 10-year budgets get out of date. They'd be well out of date now, given COVID. But there's always a sort of a delicate balance of, and I think it's one of the things that we don't think about enough when we think about political systems. We think about political systems as doing things, but you don't do things without lots of constant adjustments between making decisions and then finding that something didn't work or did work or produced some result, or then circumstances change. So you've got to try and think of a way to knit together that over time. So the Citizen Council was seen as extremely successful. It's now 2, 3, 4 years old, possibly older, and it can't set tablets in stone, and it can't pretend to do so, because politics will go on, and councillors will find it in their interests or in their consciences to do something different to what was laid down before.
So we've only got a few minutes left. Can I ask everyone to type into the chat if you have any ideas about what you think would be a good follow-on session? So where can we take this foundational stuff that we've done today? Where can we take the knowledge that we've got from Nicholas, and where should we direct that in the next activity or a next session? If you can just type your ideas into the chat, if you've got any, that would be great.
Because we're hoping to do another one of these in, say, a month's time with Nicholas again. This is scratching the surface and getting a feel for it. But then, yeah, having maybe an issue or something at Swinburne we need to decide, or maybe a particular issue, or forming the first citizen jury of Swinburne, or what are your ideas?
Yeah. So Mark, there's a question here about what is the iHub? I believe it's on the website, on the Smart Cities website. Have we got a link to more information about that?
Am I unmuted? I know there should be. I will check. There's a brochure. If anybody wants to send Jeff Kim a note. Jeff, is that okay? You'll just send them the dossier?
Good idea,
maybe?
as a follow-up.
Do you want to just
but I think we should.
In the chat?
Yeah, but I think we should actually put a button prominently on our website that says "Find out about the iHub." So it's a very good question. It should be shouldn't be a question that we need to ask.
While you're on the screen, Mark, I think we invite you to wrap up the session because we've only got a couple of minutes left, and thank Nicholas. Thank you so much, Nicholas, and over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Simone and Jenny, and obviously Nicholas for doing this. It's very close to our hearts. We want to completely upend decision making for future cities, so that actually the people who have to live with the decisions and buy the decisions can actually be part of the decision making process. So Nicholas's thought leadership, no, he doesn't like the term, but it is what it is for us, is essential for us to make sure that we keep ourselves honest and find a route to really make the most of the facility once we get to it. So I can't thank you all enough. And I've suggested that we put some hypotheticals up and say, if we were going to put a jury together for this particular purpose, how would we go about it? And I suspect if we go into breakout rooms, we'll get quite a few alternatives to the same. So that's my suggestion, that we can examine the chat afterwards and see what else is there.
Yes, we didn't want to make this session extremely long, so instead we're going to do it over several sessions. So we will be building up to what people are suggesting about sort of learning a bit more about forming a citizen jury and making it happen, and getting some hypotheticals and working with them.
So I think we also need to discuss whether, sorry, Nick.
No, it's all right. It's a pity the chat doesn't have thumbs up and thumbs down. Because I've seen a few I'd like to put thumbs up to. I think.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I think the hypotheticals.
Copy of it.
Yeah. Anyway, we can discuss that.
Save the chat.
Yes, we will save the chat, and they keep them coming until you have to go. That's wonderful. But like, it is 4 o'clock, so thank you everyone for your energy and for coming and listening to this wonderful workshop by Nicholas, and hope you got a taste for what this is all about and something food for thought. These ideas are just keeping on coming. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone.